Close your eyes for a moment, even though you are listening, even though you will keep listening, and imagine this. You are floating, not falling, not rushing, not being pulled anywhere, just floating, slowly, the way a feather settles through still air in a quiet room. Beneath you, very far beneath you now, is the earth, a soft blue marble wrapped in thin white clouds, glowing gently against the black. Oceans shimmer faintly, continents curve beneath the atmosphere, cities sparkle on the night, side like tiny embers scattered across velvet, and with every slow breath you take, that blue world grows smaller. There is no wind out here, there is no sound, there is only the quiet, patient dark, and you moving gently through it, like someone walking through a sleeping house at night, careful, unhurried, simply curious about what lies further down the hall. You pass the moon without really noticing it, the way you might pass a familiar lamp in a room you have walked through 1,000 times. You pass Mars, rust-colored and silent, with its frozen deserts and old valleys carved by water that has long since disappeared from the surface. You pass Jupiter, enormous and slow, its giant storms turning so gradually that, from this distance, they barely seem to move at all. And still you keep going, past the rings of Saturn, catching faint sunlight like frost on a window, past Uranus, pale and quiet, past Neptune, cold and blue at the edge of familiar things, and then, beyond the last planet, beyond the scattered ice of the outer solar system, beyond every boundary we once imagined as the edge of our little neighborhood, the sun behind you becomes nothing more than one point of light among countless other points of light. Indistinguishable, anonymous, just another small fire in a sky full of small fires. This is where tonight's journey begins. Not at the edge of our solar system, though we will pass through that quiet threshold without ceremony. Not even at the edge of our galaxy, that great spiral of light we call home, though we will drift past its outer arms as well, slow and weightless, the way smoke drifts past a window. Tonight, we are going further than that. Tonight, we are going to ask one of the strangest, gentlest, most disorienting questions in all of science. A question that feels simple when you first hear it, but becomes deeper the longer you sit with it. A question about the universe itself, about its boundary, if it has one, about its beginning. If beginning even means what we think it means, and about what, if anything, lies beyond everything. What is the universe expanding into? Say that question to yourself quietly, the way you might say it just before falling asleep, half-formed, half a dream already. What is the universe expanding into? It sounds like a question with an answer just out of reach. Like asking what is north of the North Pole, like asking where a road goes after the map itself has ended, like asking what kind of room contains all possible rooms. And in a way, it is exactly that kind of question. A question that gently breaks the rules of the mind that asks it. Tonight, you do not need to solve it. You only need to follow it slowly, the way you would follow a single thread of light across a dark ceiling, not trying to catch it, not trying to force it to make sense too quickly, just watching where it leads. Before we drift any further out, while your mind is still awake enough to do one small thing, let it be this. If this kind of slow, quiet journey through the universe is the kind of thing that helps you rest, helps your thoughts unclench at the end of a long day, you might like to subscribe, so that future nights like this one can find you easily, without you having to search. And if you would like to leave the gentlest kind of mark behind, a small thumbs up costs nothing and tells me that you are out there, somewhere in the dark, listening. That is all. No more asking after this. Just floating. Just listening. Just the universe, slowly opening itself in front of you like a hand uncurling. Now, let yourself sink back into the dark, and let's keep going. To understand what the universe might be expanding into, we first have to gently set aside almost everything we normally imagine when we hear the word expanding. Because when you hear expansion, your mind probably reaches for familiar pictures. A balloon being filled with air, growing larger inside a room. An explosion, throwing fragments outward into open space. A cloud of smoke spreading through a hallway. A drop of ink blooming slowly in water. Something small becoming larger by moving into empty space that was already there. That picture is natural. It is also, when it comes to the universe, not quite right. And the difference between that familiar picture and the deeper truth is where tonight's whole journey lives. Here is the first thing to hold gently in your mind, the way you might hold a smooth stone, in your palm, turning it slowly. The universe is not expanding into space. The universe is not moving outward into some enormous empty room that was sitting there beforehand, waiting to receive it. Instead, space itself is what is expanding. Space is the thing growing, not an object traveling through a fixed container, but the container itself, quietly, continuously stretching. It is a strange thought. It is supposed to feel strange. Let it feel strange. Strange is not wrong. Strange is just the doorway to something true that your mind has not visited yet. Let's use an old, gentle image, one scientists have used for almost a century now, because it still works as well as it ever did. Picture a balloon, the ordinary rubber kind, not yet inflated, lying soft and wrinkled in your hand. Now imagine someone has drawn small dots all over its surface with a marker. Each dot represents a galaxy. One dot is the Milky Way. Another is a distant galaxy. Another is a cluster of galaxies far beyond that. Now, slowly, someone begins to blow air into the balloon. As the balloon inflates, what happens to the dots? They move apart from each other. Every dot drifts away from every other dot, smoothly, gradually, as the rubber beneath them stretches. But notice something important. The dots themselves are not crawling across the surface of the balloon like ants walking from one spot to another. The dots stay in their places on the rubber. What is moving is the rubber itself. The surface stretches, and because the surface stretches, the distance between the dots increases. That is the universe, not galaxies racing away from each other through some pre-existing emptiness, like cars speeding apart on an infinite highway. Instead, the space between galaxies, the literal distance, the very fabric that separates one region from another, is stretching, slowly, gently, everywhere, all at once. The galaxies are not going anywhere, in a certain sense. They are simply finding themselves, farther apart because the space they live in is becoming larger. Let that settle for a moment. You do not have to fully grasp it yet. Understanding can come slowly, the way warmth spreads through cold hands held near a fire. Not all at once, just gradually, gradually, gradually. Here is a second image, just as old, just as useful, and maybe even easier to hold on to as you start to drift. Imagine a loaf of raisin bread before it has been baked. while the dough is still soft and rising in its pan. Scattered through that dough are raisins, evenly spaced here and there, the way galaxies are scattered through the universe. Now, imagine the dough begins to rise, slowly, in a warm and quiet kitchen. As the dough rises, every raisin moves away from every other raisin, not because the raisins are moving through the dough, but because the dough itself, the substance between them, is expanding. A raisin sitting at what feels like the center of the loaf would look out and see every other raisin drifting away from it. A raisin near the edge would also look out and see every other raisin drifting away from it. Every raisin, from its own point of view, would appear to be at the center of expansion, and yet no single raisin is the true center. That is one of the strangest and gentlest truths in all of cosmology. The universe has no center that we can point to. Every galaxy, including our own, sees distant galaxies receding from it in every direction, as if it were sitting in the middle of everything. And yet, no galaxy actually is the center, because there is no center. Only space itself swelling outward, everywhere, equally, the way warmth spreads through a blanket pulled slowly from the dryer, evenly, quietly, without favoring one corner over another. You might be wondering, somewhere in the soft, slowing corners of your mind, what this expansion would actually feel like if you were inside it. And the answer, comfortingly, is that you do not feel it at all. Not in any way that pulls at your body. Not in any way that stretches your bones. Not in any way that makes your room, your bed, your hands, or your heartbeat drift apart. The expansion of the universe is happening on scales so vast, so unimaginably large, that on the scale of your body, your room, your house, even your galaxy, it is simply too small an effect to notice. Gravity, the quiet hand that holds your body together, your planet together, your solar system together, and the Milky Way together, easily overcomes this slow stretching at every smaller scale. It is only across the vast gaps between galaxies, gaps so wide that light itself takes millions or billions of years to cross them, that this expansion becomes large enough to measure. So you can rest knowing that wherever you are right now, lying still, breathing slowly, the expansion of the universe is not happening to you in any way you could ever feel. It is happening out there, in the deep, patient distances between galaxies, the way a tide moves an ocean while a single drop of water on your skin stays perfectly still. Now, here is where the question we started with begins to take on its true shape. If space itself is what is expanding, if the universe is not a balloon moving into a room, not dough rising into an oven that was already there, then what exactly is space expanding into? This is the moment where the analogies, helpful as they have been, start to gently strain at their own edges. Because a real balloon expands into the air around it. Real dough expands inside a bowl, then inside an oven. Those are objects expanding into other, larger spaces that already existed beforehand. But the universe, as far as our best understanding can tell us, is not like that. The universe is not a balloon inside a bigger room. The universe is not dough inside a larger kitchen. The universe, in the most complete sense we can describe, might simply be all there is. Every room, every kitchen, every container, every possible direction, all at once. And if that is true, then it raises a question that feels almost impossible to hold steady in your mind. If the universe is everything, what is outside of everything? Let's slow down here. because this is a place worth lingering, the way you might linger at a window on a quiet night, not because anything is happening, but because something about the stillness itself feels important. When scientists say the universe is expanding, they are not usually claiming to know what lies beyond its furthest reaches because, in a very real sense, there may be no beyond. Not a beyond that is simply unexplored, like an unmapped corner of an old forest. A beyond that may not exist as a place at all, the way there is no place north of the North Pole. At the North Pole, north is not a hidden direction waiting to be discovered. North simply runs out of meaning there. Every direction from that single point becomes south. The concept itself dissolves, not because of a lack of exploration, but because of the shape of the world you are standing on. Some scientists believe something similar may be true of the universe and its outer edge, if you can even call it an edge. Not a wall waiting to be reached, not a final shore where space stops and something else begins. Instead, perhaps, the question of what is outside the universe is a question built from a very human habit. The habit of imagining everything as an object sitting inside another, larger object. Boxes inside. Boxes. Rooms inside houses. Houses inside neighborhoods. Neighborhoods inside cities. Cities inside countries. Countries inside planets. Planets inside solar systems. Solar systems inside galaxies. Galaxies inside the universe. And then the mind, trained by a lifetime of containers, asks naturally, what is the universe inside? But the universe may not be inside anything. It may not be an object sitting within a larger space. It may be the very thing that makes inside and outside possible at all. Not a thing inside space. The source of space itself. Let that idea drift past you slowly, like a single cloud crossing a still night sky, not in any hurry to be understood all at once. To get a little closer to this, it helps to talk about something called the observable universe. That phrase sounds technical, but it describes something gentle and almost intimate once you sit with it. The observable universe is simply the portion of the entire universe that we, here on Earth, are able to see, using our telescopes, our instruments, and our patient watching of the sky. It is shaped like an enormous sphere, with Earth sitting at its center, not because we are special, not because we are the true middle of everything, but for the same reason every raisin in that rising dough sees itself as the center. Wherever you stand in this kind of universe, the portion you can see forms a sphere around you, and you appear, from your own vantage point, to be sitting in the middle of it. The edge of that observable sphere is not a wall. It is not a boundary made of matter or energy. It is not a shell or a fence or a final surface. It is simply the furthest distance that light has had time to travel to reach us since the beginning of the universe, roughly 13.8 billion years ago. Light moves astonishingly fast, faster than anything else we know of, and yet even light, given only 13.8 billion years, can only cross so much distance. Beyond that distance, there may be more universe. Much more. Perhaps endlessly more. But its light has not had time to reach us yet. It is not absent. It is only, in the gentlest sense of the word, not yet visible. Like a letter that has been written and sent, but has not yet arrived in your mailbox, sitting somewhere along its long, patient journey toward you. So, when we ask what the universe is expanding into, part of the answer is this: we do not know how big the entire universe actually is. We only know how much of it we can observe. The whole universe might be only slightly larger than what we can see, or it might be far larger, hundreds of times larger, thousands of times larger, or, and this is the possibility that some cosmologists take very seriously, the whole universe might be infinite, stretching on forever in every direction, with no edge anywhere to reach, no matter how far or how fast you traveled. Sit with that word for a moment. Infinite. Not large, not extremely large, not bigger than anything you can imagine. Infinite. A word our minds were never quite built to hold steady, the way you cannot hold an entire ocean in two cupped hands, no matter how wide you spread your fingers. And yet, infinite or merely unimaginably vast, the question remains open in front of us. If there is no edge, then there is nothing for that edge to be expanding into. The expansion is not happening at some outer boundary, racing outward into fresh territory. The expansion is happening everywhere, all, throughout space, all at once. The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space everywhere as it goes. Let that phrase rest in your mind. The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space everywhere as it goes. It does not need an outside to grow into, because growing, for the universe, does not mean moving into a larger room. It means the room itself becoming larger from within. The way a sleeping creature breathes in slowly, its whole body, expanding gently, not because it is moving into anything, but because it is simply becoming more itself. You might find yourself wondering, somewhere in the warm haze just before sleep, what this means for the beginning itself, the moment we call the Big Bang. Because if there is no center and no edge and no space outside of space for the universe to expand into, then the Big Bang itself could not have been an explosion happening at one single point in a pre-existing emptiness. That is a common picture, a tempting picture, the picture of fireworks bursting outward into a dark sky. But it is not quite accurate. If space itself began with the Big Bang, if space and time came into being together in that first impossibly hot, impossibly dense moment, then there was no empty room sitting around it waiting to be filled. The Big Bang did not happen at a point inside space. In the gentlest, strangest sense, the Big Bang happened everywhere. Because everywhere, all of space, all of what? Would become galaxies and stars and planets and quiet bedrooms and sleepy listeners like you, was contained inside that first tiny, searing moment. There was no outside to that moment. There was no audience standing somewhere safe, watching it happen from a comfortable distance. Every point that now exists, the point where you are lying right now, the point where the furthest galaxy we can see is sitting tonight, all of it was once part of that same first moment, packed closely together, before space itself began to stretch outward in every direction at once. Let that settle, slow and heavy, like a stone sinking gently through warm water. Every point in the universe, including the one you occupy right now, was once part of the same beginning. You are not separate from that first moment. You are, in a real and physical sense, still inside it, still living within the slow, patient unfolding of that first breath the universe ever took. Now, let us turn gently toward the second half of tonight's question, the half that asks not only about expansion, but about nothing itself, because so far we have talked about what lies beyond the edge of the observable universe in terms of more universe, more galaxies, more stars we cannot see yet. But there is a deeper, stranger version of the question waiting beneath that one. What if, somewhere far enough out, past all the galaxies, past all the light that will ever reach us, there really is an edge, and what lies beyond that edge, if not more universe? What does true nothingness actually mean? This is where physics begins to brush up against philosophy, the way the edge of a lake brushes against the edge of a forest. Two very different kinds of terrain meeting along a soft, blurred line. Nothing in everyday language simply means the absence of stuff. An empty room has nothing in it. An empty fridge has nothing inside. A quiet day had nothing happen. But every one of those ordinary uses of nothing secretly assumes something. An empty room still has air, still has walls, still has space, still has time passing inside it. An empty fridge still has shelves, temperature, light, and the quiet hum of electricity keeping it cold. A quiet day still has hours moving across it, a body breathing through it, a sky turning slowly overhead. Even the deepest silence in your room right now still has air carrying sound waves, however faint. Still has photons of light, however dim. Still has the quiet electrical hum of your own mind, turning gently as it listens. True nothing, the kind physicists sometimes try to imagine when they ask what lies beyond everything, would have none of that. No air, no light, no walls, no shelves, no hum, not even space for shelves to sit in, not even time for hours to pass through. Nothing, in this deepest sense, is not an empty room. It is the complete absence of rooms themselves, the absence of inside and outside, the absence of here and there, the absence of before and after, the absence of the stage on which anything could happen. Let that settle, slow and soft, the way fog settles into a valley overnight, filling every low place without a sound. And here is where something surprising enters the story. Because when physicists study what we call empty space, the vacuum of space itself, the seemingly blank nothingness between stars and galaxies, they do not find true nothing there either. They find something stranger, something quietly restless. Picture the calmest body of water you can imagine. A still lake very early in the morning, before any wind has touched its surface, before any bird has dipped its wing across the glassy top. From a distance, it looks perfectly smooth, perfectly motionless. The kind of stillness that almost feels sacred. But if you could shrink yourself down, very small, very close to the surface, and watch carefully enough, you would begin to notice tiny ripples, impossibly small, rising and falling everywhere across the water, appearing and vanishing so quickly that from any normal distance they disappear into stillness. This is something like what physicists call the quantum vacuum, the true nature of what we usually think of as empty space. At the smallest possible scale, far smaller than atoms, far smaller than anything you could picture clearly, empty space is not actually still. It is filled with a constant, quiet trembling. Particles and their opposite partners flicker briefly into existence and then vanish again almost instantly. So fast, so fleeting, almost real, then gone. Scientists sometimes call this restless quality of empty space quantum foam, a phrase that feels almost poetic once you let it sit in your mind. Foam, the way sea foam gathers and dissolves along a shoreline, appearing in one place, vanishing in another, never quite solid, never quite absent either. So even the vacuum of space, The closest thing to nothing that we can actually measure and study turns out not to be true nothing. It is something. A thin, quiet, strange kind of something, but still something. This means that if what lies beyond the observable universe is simply more empty space, more vacuum stretching outward in every direction, it would still be humming with this same quiet quantum foam. It would not be true nothingness. It would simply be more of the same restless quiet that fills the space between every star you have ever seen. But true nothing, the deeper kind, the kind with no space for even quantum foam. To flicker within is something else entirely, not a thinner version of the vacuum, not a darker region of space, not an empty cosmic room, the complete absence of the stage on which the vacuum performs its trembling. No stage, no flickering, no foam, not even silence, because silence still requires a place in which silence can exist. Just the absence of the very possibility of anything happening anywhere, ever. Some physicists have wondered whether true nothing, in this complete sense, can even exist at all as a real physical possibility, or whether it is more like a perfectly straight line in geometry, a useful idea to think with, but not something you could ever actually find anywhere in the physical world. Perhaps true, nothing has never existed at all. Perhaps reality, in one form or another, has always been. Perhaps the closest the universe ever comes to nothing is this flickering vacuum, this almost empty space, this soft quantum foam that is never quite something in the ordinary sense, but never quite nothing either. Let your breathing slow again here. None of this needs to be solved tonight. You are simply being allowed to sit with a very old mystery, the way you might sit beside a fire that does not need tending. Just warmth, just presence, just quiet company in the dark. Now let us turn gently toward a question that follows close behind. If the Big Bang marks the beginning of space and time as we understand them, then what, if anything, came before it? It is tempting to picture some empty stage waiting in silence before the universe finally burst into being upon it. But if time itself began with the Big Bang, then the question of what came before may not make the kind of sense we expect it to. Before is a word that depends on time already existing, already flowing, already giving meaning to the order of events. If time itself had a beginning, then asking what happened before that beginning may be like asking what is north of the North Pole. Not because the question is foolish, but because it borrows assumptions from a world where time is already running and tries to apply them to the one moment where, perhaps, it was not. And yet, gently, patiently, physicists still wonder about this, because the human mind is built to wonder, built to ask what came before, built to keep walking down the hallway even when the hallway has grown dark. There are several careful ideas in modern cosmology, each one like a candle held against the darkness. Not final answers, but attempts. Not certainty, but possibility. One of these ideas is called eternal inflation, and it carries with it an image almost too strange and too beautiful to hold steady in a tired mind. Imagine an enormous, endless field of energy, expanding outward in every direction, far before, far beyond, far larger than the small portion that eventually became our own universe. In this picture, our Big Bang was not the beginning of everything. It was more like a single bubble forming inside a larger, ever-expanding field, the way a bubble might form in a vast pot of boiling water. One bubble appears, grows, becomes its own separate region with its own space, its own time, its own unfolding story. Meanwhile, the larger field keeps expanding, keeps bubbling, keeps giving rise to other bubbles elsewhere, other universes, other regions, other cosmic histories we will never see, never touch, never receive a single photon from. If this picture is true, then our universe is not a single lonely event surrounded by nothing. It is one bubble among countless others, rising within some larger cosmic field, while that field keeps bubbling on in places beyond all possible observation. But notice something important. Even this idea does not fully answer the deepest question, because then we can ask, where did that larger field come from? What is it expanding into? What explains it? The question simply moves one layer deeper, the way opening one drawer in an old desk reveals another smaller drawer inside it, and then another, and then another. This is how the deepest questions in physics often behave. They are not solved all at once. They are understood layer by layer, and every new layer is both an answer and a new, quieter version of the same question. There is another possibility, softer and almost meditative in its rhythm, sometimes called a cyclic universe. In this picture, the universe is not a single event, and not one bubble among many, but one chapter in an endless repeating story. A universe expands for an unimaginable stretch of time, then perhaps slows, perhaps contracts, perhaps returns to an incredibly dense state, then rebounds, begins again, expands again. Not once, but over and over, the way breath moves in and out of a sleeping body, in and out, and in and out, without any single breath needing to be the true beginning of all breathing. If something like this is true, then asking what came before our Big Bang would be like asking which wave on the ocean was the first true wave. Each wave follows the one before it. Each rises and falls. Each is real. But the ocean itself is older, deeper, more continuous than any one wave could ever be. Again, these are not certainties. They are careful possibilities. Gentle attempts to place a small lamp inside a very large darkness. And perhaps that, more than any single answer, is the quiet gift hidden inside tonight's question. Not a final resolution. Something gentler. The reminder that you are allowed to sit inside a mystery without needing to solve it before you can rest. The universe itself has been expanding for 13.8 billion years without needing a perfect answer in order to keep going. The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space, everywhere, as it goes. Let that phrase rest in you again now, a little deeper this time, the way a single note played softly on a piano settles into the air of a quiet room, lingering even after the sound itself has faded. You are still drifting, far past every star, far past every galaxy, somewhere in that soft, uncertain region where physics begins to whisper instead of speak plainly, and there is nowhere else you need to be right now except exactly here, floating, listening, letting your body grow heavier and softer against whatever surface is holding you, while your mind keeps drifting through one of the oldest questions our species has ever dared to ask out, loud. There is one more thread worth gently pulling on here. Some physicists, when they imagine this larger field from which our bubble universe may have emerged, wonder whether other bubbles, other universes, might have completely different properties from our own. Different strengths of gravity, different numbers of dimensions, different particles, different rules written into the very fabric of reality. In one universe, gravity might be too strong for long-lived stars, in another, too weak for matter to gather into galaxies. In another, atoms might never form. In another, space itself might have a shape impossible for us to picture. If so, our universe, with its particular delicate balance, just enough gravity to hold galaxies together without crushing everything into a single point, just enough structure for atoms to form, just enough time for stars to ignite, burn, die, and seed space with heavier elements, might be one of many attempts scattered across some larger landscape we will never see. Picture it like a vast field of soap bubbles, drifting in still morning air, each bubble shimmering with its own colors, each bubble complete within itself, each bubble carrying its own tiny reflection of light. Our universe, in this picture, is simply one bubble among that vast silent field, drifting along on its own 13.8 billion year breath. Not more real than the others, not less real, just quietly, fully being itself. Before we drift further, let's rest for a moment on something we can actually see, something gathered patiently by careful instruments. There is a faint ancient glow that fills the entire sky in every direction you could point a sensitive enough telescope. A soft afterglow left over from the universe's earliest childhood, from a time before stars, before galaxies, before planets, before anything familiar had formed. Scientists call it the cosmic microwave background, but you do not need to remember the name. Think of it instead as the universe's first baby picture, faint, grainy, ancient, soft around the edges with age. What is remarkable about this ancient light is not only that we can see it at all, though that alone is astonishing. What is remarkable is what it tells us about the shape of everything. This light comes to us evenly from every direction, almost perfectly the same temperature no matter which way we look. Only the faintest ripples appear in it, tiny differences that would eventually grow into the seeds of galaxies, stars, planets, and quiet worlds. That evenness tells cosmologists that the universe likely has no special center, no special edge, no direction that is truly privileged over another. Wherever you stood, in any galaxy, looking out at this same ancient light, it would likely look almost exactly the same to you as it does to us. It is like waking in an unfamiliar room, in complete darkness, and reaching your hands out slowly in every direction, only to find the same soft wall no matter which way you turn. You cannot see the whole shape of the room that way, but you learn something true. The space around you feels remarkably even, smooth, without any sudden hard edge waiting to surprise you. There's another place in physics where this question of edges quietly resurfaces, a little closer to home, a little easier to picture. Black holes. Those quiet, enormous wells of gravity so strong that nothing, not even light, can climb back out once it falls too close. Around every black hole is something called an event horizon, a boundary in space past which nothing can ever return. Notice the word boundary, and notice how careful we have to be with it. The event horizon is not a wall. It is not a hard surface you would feel yourself hit. If you were falling into a sufficiently large black hole, drifting across that invisible threshold, you might not feel anything unusual happen in that exact moment. No thud, no resistance, no wall of light, no sudden sound. And yet, from that point onward, every possible direction available to you would lead further
Liftoff
inward.
of the
Never
Delta
back
rocket
out.
carrying
The
glass,
boundary
a
changes
gamma-ray telescope
everything,
searching for
even though
unseen
it is not a
physics
wall.
in the stars of
This
the
is a
galaxy.
strange echo of tonight's larger question. A boundary that is not a surface, a threshold you could cross without feeling it, an edge defined not by something solid, but by what can and cannot reach you. The edge of the observable universe is similar in spirit. It is not the edge of everything. It is the edge of what light has been able to bring us, the edge of our cosmic seeing, the edge of our hearing in the dark. Imagine lying in bed in a quiet house at night. You can hear a clock ticking down the hall,
Liftoff
a
of the
pipe
Delta
settling
rocket
in the
carrying
wall,
glass,
a car
gamma-ray
passing on a
telescope
distant
searching
street.
for unseen
But there
physics
is a
in
limit
the
to
stars
how
of the
far your
galaxy.
hearing reaches. Beyond a certain distance, sounds still exist, but they do not reach your ears. That limit is not a wall. It is simply the boundary of your hearing. The observable universe is like that, not the edge of reality. The edge of what reality has had time to show us. Beyond it, there may be more than we can ever know. More galaxies, more stars, more
T-minus
long,
10,
quiet
9,
distances,
8, 7,
not hidden behind a wall,
6,
simply
5,
too far
4,
away for
3,
their light to
2,
have arrived.
1.
And because the universe is
Ignition
expanding,
and liftoff
some
of
that
Ares
light may
1X,
never arrive at
testing
all.
concepts
That
for the
light
future
may be
of
strange,
new rocket
light
design.
forever on its way, never quite reaching us. But there is something gentle in it too. It means the universe is not finished revealing itself. It never will be. There will always be more dark beyond what we can currently see. More distance, more mystery, more quiet. Not because knowledge has failed, but because reality is larger than any single point inside it can observe. Let yourself breathe a little slower now. You do not need to hold all of this tightly. Let it move through you like a soft current through still water, touching everything gently, holding nothing too firmly. The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space everywhere as it goes. Now, let us turn toward infinity, that strange, slippery word we touched earlier. Infinity is one of those words we use easily, but cannot truly hold. We say infinite as if it simply means very large, but infinity is not very large. It is not the largest number. It is not the final room at the end of a hallway. Infinity means there is no final room, no last number, no last step, no edge. There is an old thought experiment, gentle and almost playful, that helps the mind brush against the strangeness of infinity. Imagine a hotel with infinitely many rooms. Not 100, not 1,000, not 1,000,000. Infinitely many. Rooms stretching down a single endless hallway, room after room after room, with no final door at the end, because there is no end for a final door to occupy. Now imagine the
10,
hotel is completely
9,
full.
8,
Every
7,
room is occupied.
6,
A new
5,
guest
we have
arrives
ready to
late
start,
at night
2,
asking for
1,
In an
0,
ordinary
booster
hotel,
ignition, and
full
liftoff
means
of Shuttle
full.
Endeavour with
No.
NASA's final space station
Space
crew compartment that brings
But
a
in
bay
this
window view to our
strange,
celestial
infinite
backyard.
hotel, the manager smiles and says, "Of course, we have room." Then asks every current guest to move one room down. The guest in room 1 moves to room 2. The guest in room 2 moves to room 3. The guest in room 3 moves to room 4. And so on, forever. Because the hallway never ends, every guest has somewhere to move. Room 1 becomes empty. The new guest enters. A completely full, infinite hotel has made room for one more. This is not a trick. It is simply one of the strange properties of true infinity. A place where full and not full can mean something very different from what they mean in a closet, a kitchen, or an ordinary room. Now imagine infinitely many new guests arriving all at once, an infinite busload of them. The manager still does not panic. He asks every current guest to move to double their room number. Room 1 moves to room 2. Room 2 moves to room 4. Room 3 moves to room 6. Room 4 moves to room 8. Suddenly, every odd-numbered room is empty. Infinitely many empty rooms for infinitely many new arrivals. This little story is sometimes called Hilbert's Hotel. It is not really about hotels. It is about how infinity behaves differently from everything in ordinary life. If the universe is truly infinite, stretching forever in every direction, then it may carry something of this same strangeness within it. Infinitely many galaxies, infinitely many stars, perhaps infinitely many regions beyond our cosmic horizon. Perhaps even, in some far stranger and more speculative possibilities, infinitely many arrangements of matter, repeating patterns, distant echoes, worlds beyond any possible reach. You do not need to follow that thought too far tonight. It can feel dizzying if held too tightly, the way looking directly at a bright light can leave spots floating in your vision afterward. Just let it pass through softly. One strange possibility among many, neither confirmed nor denied, simply held, gently in the dark. There is another way to feel infinity, closer to something you may have actually experienced. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast desert just after sunset, the sand still warm beneath your feet, the sky turning slowly from orange to deep blue. Ahead of you, dunes roll toward the horizon until they blur into the same color as the sky. You know, somewhere in the back of your mind, that the desert is not truly infinite. Somewhere it ends. Somewhere it gives way to mountains, ocean, road, or city. But standing there in that moment, the feeling of endlessness is real, complete, undeniable. This is something close to how astronomers experience the question of the universe's true size. We cannot see a true edge if one exists. We see galaxy after galaxy, distance after distance, fading into ancient light. Whether the true desert ends somewhere beyond what we can see, or whether it truly has no end at all, is a question our current eyes cannot fully answer. And yet, the desert does not ask you to walk all the way to its edge before you are allowed to find it beautiful. You can stand where you are, feel the warmth beneath your feet, watch the sky deepen, and let the vastness be enough. There is one more idea worth holding gently. In art, there is something called negative space, the empty area around and between the main subject of a painting or photograph. A skilled artist does not treat negative space as useless absence. The empty sky behind a lone tree gives the tree its height. The blank page around a small drawing gives the drawing room to breathe. The dark around a candle makes the candle visible. Perhaps, in a very imperfect but human way, this gives us a small echo of what nothingness means. Not a hungry emptiness waiting to swallow everything. Not a threat. Not a monster at the edge of reality, but a kind of silent contrast. A dark field against which being can appear. Without darkness, starlight would mean nothing. Without silence, music would have no shape. Without absence, presence would be impossible to recognize. Let that settle now, like ink spreading slowly through still water. There is a quieter distinction mathematicians and philosophers have considered for thousands of years. They sometimes speak of potential infinity and actual infinity. Potential infinity is the infinity of counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, onward, forever. You never reach infinity. You simply keep going. There is always one more step. Actual infinity is stranger. It is the completed infinite. The infinite hotel already built. Every room already present. Every number somehow existing together. Cosmologists wonder, in their own careful way, which kind of infinity, if either, describes the universe. Is space actually infinite right now? Every star and every gap between stars already existing, stretching forever in all directions? Or is space more like potential infinity, always able to keep expanding, always capable of more, endlessly becoming, without ever needing to be a finished infinite whole? This may sound abstract, but it touches the heart of tonight's question. Is the universe endless? Or is it endlessly becoming? Is it a finished book, already containing every page? Or a story still writing itself, one moment at a time? This leads us gently toward time itself. Some physicists imagine what is called a block universe. In this picture, every moment that has ever happened, and every moment that ever will happen, exists in some sense together, like every page of a book already printed between its covers. You, as the reader, experience one page at a time, but the whole book is already there. The first page has not vanished just because you are reading the middle. The last page is not unreal just because you have not reached it yet. Other thinkers prefer a more familiar picture, where only the present truly exists. The past has slipped away. The future is not yet written. You are not reading a finished book. You are writing the current page with every breath. Notice how this debate about time echoes the question about space. Does the universe already exist in full, like a vast, completed structure? Or is it becoming itself moment by moment? Does space stretch endlessly? Or does it keep creating more of itself as it goes? There is no need to choose tonight. You are allowed to simply notice both pictures, both held carefully by serious minds, both attempting to describe something larger than ordinary intuition, can easily carry. The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space everywhere as it goes. Let that phrase settle again, softer now, like a snowflake landing on already fallen snow. There is another thread, strange and mathematical, from something called string theory. You do not need the mathematics tonight, only the feeling of the idea. Some versions of string theory suggest there may be many possible ways for a universe to be built, different hidden dimensions, curled so small we cannot see them, different physical constants, different laws, different landscapes of possibility. Physicists sometimes call this the landscape, a vast collection of possible realities, each shaped by different underlying structures. Our own universe would be one quiet valley in that landscape, one arrangement where stars can form, where atoms are stable, where planets can cool, where water can flow, where life can begin, where a person can lie in the dark and wonder what everything is expanding into. Again, this does not solve the deepest mystery. It simply gives it another layer. Where did the landscape come from? Why is there a landscape at all? What holds possibility itself? The question remains, but now it is softer. Not a demand, not a problem. A quiet candle in the dark. Here is something closer to you, You already meet a small piece of nothingness every night. When dreamless sleep arrives, there is no experience inside it. Not darkness you are aware of. Not silence you listen to. Simply absence. A gap in the story of awareness. One moment you are drifting towards sleep, and the next, morning has arrived. Hours have passed, but you did not feel them pass. In a small human way, dreamless sleep is one of the closest experiences we have to nothing. Not frightening, not painful, not empty in any way that harms you. Simply absent, still, peaceful. A pause you have trusted yourself to enter thousands of times before, and every time you returned. If your body already knows how to rest inside that small nightly nothing, perhaps some quiet part of you already understands that nothing itself was never something to fear, only something to release into, something to trust, something to let be. Let that thought settle warmly over you, like the last blanket pulled up before the final light is turned off. Now, one more strange possibility. Some physicists have wondered whether the universe itself might have emerged from something close to true. Nothing through a process sometimes called quantum tunneling. This idea borrows from a real phenomenon in quantum physics, where tiny particles can sometimes appear on the other side of barriers that, by ordinary rules, they should not be able to cross. Not by breaking through, not by climbing over, not by going around, but by a strange quantum permission that lets them appear where classical intuition says they should not. Some cosmologists have wondered whether the entire universe might have come into being through something like this. Not violently, not as an explosion in a pre-existing room, but as a quiet possibility becoming real. A bubble appearing where, by ordinary rules, nothing should have been able to appear at all. This is speculative. It is not settled fact. It is a candle, not a sunrise. But even as a candle, it illuminates something beautiful. That existence may not need to be pushed into being by a surrounding space. That being may arise not into a room, but as the room itself. Space, time, matter, energy, law, and possibility unfolding together. The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space, everywhere, as it goes. Now imagine, one final time, approaching the true edge of everything, if such an edge could ever be reached. Not as a frightened traveler standing at a cliff, but as a calm visitor standing beside a still dark lake at night, looking out over water that mirrors the stars so perfectly you cannot tell where water ends and sky begins. What would it feel like to stand at the edge of the universe, facing absolute nothingness? Based on everything we have explored, the honest answer is strange, and strangely comforting. You likely would not feel a wall. You would not feel a sudden stop. You would not collide with the final surface. You might experience something more like fading, like candlelight gradually dissolving into darkness, with no single line marking exactly where light ends and shadow begins. Or you might find that space curves gently, carrying you back toward where you began without you ever noticing the turn. Or you might simply continue forever, through more space, more quiet, more distance, the journey itself becoming the only destination there ever was. None of these possibilities involve something hostile waiting for you. True, nothing has no wants. It cannot reach. Reaching requires space. It cannot wait. Waiting requires time. It cannot threaten. Threatening requires intention. And intention requires a mind. Whatever lies at the true edge of everything, if an edge exists at all, it is not a predator in the dark. It simply is, or simply is not. The way that time before your birth was not waiting for you. You did not suffer through your own non-existence before you were born. There was no impatient void longing for you to arrive. There was, in the deepest sense, no one there to wait. This absence of waiting may be the closest, softest model we have for what true nothing feels. Like from the inside. Which is to say, it does not feel like anything at all, because there is no inside there to feel from. Let that settle now, slow and warm, like a hand resting gently on your chest, feeling your own breath rise and fall beneath it. Imagine drifting past every last star, every last faint smudge of galaxy, past the final glow of ancient light, past the last trace of the cosmic microwave background, and then, without fear, without urgency, without needing to arrive anywhere, simply turning back, like someone standing at the edge of a calm lake for a while, breathing the cool night air, then walking slowly home, unharmed, unhurried, carrying only the quiet feeling that the dark out there, however vast and strange, was never something to fear, only something vast enough to remind you how rare, how warm, and how worth resting inside your own present moment truly is. There is one last thought worth carrying as this journey begins to soften toward its close. Billions of years ago, in the heart of a dying star, the atoms that now make up your body were forged. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon woven through every cell. They were made in heat and pressure beyond imagination, then scattered outward into space when that star died. They drifted for ages, gathered into clouds, became part of a new star system, became Earth, became oceans, became life, became you. This means something quiet and almost startling. You are not simply a visitor. Inside this expanding universe, peering out at it from a safe distance. You are the universe in one of its smaller, warmer, more curious forms. A temporary fold in reality, capable of wondering about reality. When you ask what the universe is expanding into, in a very real sense, the universe is asking that question through you, using atoms forged in ancient starlight, arranged briefly into a mind capable of looking outward and inward at the same time. There is nothing you need to do. With that thought tonight, you do not need to feel grand because of it. You do not need to feel small. Only let it rest beside everything else we have gathered. One more quiet piece of a question still unfolding. One more page in a letter that has not finished opening. Notice how your own breathing has likely slowed since we began. You drifted past the moon, past Mars, past Saturn, past Neptune, past the sun becoming just another star, past the Milky Way, past galaxies, past the edge of what light has been able to show us, past the idea of edges, past the idea of nothing. And now you are here, still breathing, still safe, still held by the quiet surface beneath you. Let your hands rest wherever they are, palms soft, fingers loose, not gripping anything, not holding on to anything. Whatever worry followed you into this night, let it be set down gently beside you, not erased, not solved, simply not needed right now. There will be time for ordinary things tomorrow. There will be time for names and messages and schedules and decisions. But tonight belongs to something slower, something wider, something patient, The universe is not expanding into space. It is simply creating more space, everywhere as it goes. And you, small and warm and breathing, are not separate from that unfolding. You are one of the places where it has paused for a moment to notice itself. Maybe this is the gentlest answer tonight can offer. Not a diagram, not a final equation, not a wall at the edge of space. Just this: the universe does not need a larger room. It is the room. It does not need an outside. It is the thing that makes outside and inside meaningful. It does not expand like smoke in a hallway. It expands like the hallway itself becoming longer, like distance itself growing, like the fabric of everything taking another slow breath, and you are inside that breath, not lost in it, not threatened by it, held by it, made from it, carried by it. Let yourself rest in that now. No answer needs to be forced. No mystery needs to be closed. The question can remain open, hanging gently in the dark above you like a distant star. What is the universe expanding into? Maybe into nothing. Maybe into no place at all. Maybe into itself. Maybe the word into is the part that fails us, because into belongs to boxes and rooms and ordinary things, and the universe is not an ordinary thing. Maybe the truest answer is not that the universe expands into something, but that the universe expands. Space grows. Time unfolds. Distances widen. Light travels. Stars burn. Galaxies drift. And somewhere on a small blue planet, a tired mind lies still in the dark and wonders. That is enough for tonight. Let the question stay open. Let the sky remain vast. Let the dark remain gentle. Let your breathing slow. In and out. In and out. The universe has been patient for 13.8 billion years. It can wait a little longer for an answer. So can you. Rest now. The edge of everything is not calling you tonight. The beginning of time is not asking you to understand it. Nothingness is not waiting with sharp teeth in the dark. There is only this room, this breath, this soft gravity holding you, this quiet body made of ancient stars, this mind slowly letting go. And far above you, beyond the ceiling, beyond the clouds, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the moon, beyond Mars, beyond Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune, beyond the outer dark, beyond the Milky Way, beyond every galaxy we can name, space is still expanding, not into a room, not into a void, simply expanding, creating more space everywhere as it goes, and you do not need to follow it any further tonight. You have gone far enough. Let the stars keep their watch. Let the galaxies drift. Let the ancient light continue its long journey. Let the universe breathe its enormous, silent breath, and let your own breath slow to match it. Softly, patiently, completely. Sleep now beneath a sky that may have no edge. Sleep now, inside a universe that does not need an outside. Sleep now, held by the same quiet laws that hold every star in place, every galaxy in motion, every atom in your body gently together. What is the universe expanding into? Tonight, it is enough to know this. It is not expanding away from you. You are inside its unfolding. You are part of its story. You are made of its old light. And for now, in this small warm moment, there is nothing left to do but rest. Good night. Rest gently. The universe can. Keep expanding without you needing to understand where it goes. And the mystery will still be there tomorrow, patient as starlight, waiting for another quiet night.